Winston Churchill once said something that should unsettle every student of history. There is no such thing as public opinion. There is only published opinion. Today we test that line against three empires that fell: Soviet Russia, Royal France, and Golden Age Holland. And what we find is unsettling. The reason common people believed each one collapsed is almost never the real reason. The USSR, communism, failed. Ask anyone why the Soviet Union fell and they'll say communism failed. The people finally rose up after decades of shortage. That struggle was real, but it was 70 years old. It doesn't explain why the collapse came exactly when it did. Here's what rarely gets told. In September 1985, Saudi Arabia suddenly flooded the world with oil, crashing prices from over $30 a barrel to nearly $10. This was no accident. Declassified American directives from those very years spoke openly of neutralizing Soviet power, and the CIA's own director had been in Riyadh just before the taps opened. Overnight, Moscow lost close to $20 billion a year, the currency financing its military and its allies. A budget already stretched by defense spending simply broke. The empire didn't fall to an idea, it was pushed deliberately off a cliff it was already standing on. France, the people rose for liberty. We are taught the French Revolution as Enlightenment ideals defeating a tyrant king. The published story again. Here's what the common people never saw. In 1781, the king's own finance minister published an official account claiming a healthy surplus. It was fabricated. The nation was already drowning in debt, and for years the public trusted a lie stamped with royal authority. Behind closed doors, it was worse. Reform after reform was proposed to finally tax the nobility and clergy, barely 2% of France, holding the overwhelming share of its wealth. Every time, the courts they controlled struck it down, while posturing in public as guardians of order, never as the men blocking the cure. So for decades, the burden fell on the other 98%. The public kept in the dark, until people fought for a loaf of bread and a king and queen went to the guillotine. Holland, the empire that vanished quietly. Now the strangest one. For nearly 80 years, the Dutch Republic was the global economy, inventing the stock exchange, turning the guilder into the world's first reserve currency. Then it was gone. Most people can't even tell you why. Here's the reveal. The very people who built that empire grew so comfortable they stopped building and started lending, pouring Dutch capital into the bonds of the empire that would replace them, Britain. Their own trading company was hollowed out from within by institutionalized corruption. When war finally came, it didn't create the weakness, it exposed one financed in silence for a generation. The turn and why it matters now. 3 empires, 3 centuries, and in every case, the story the public believed was not the mechanism that broke them. That's exactly the trap Churchill was warning us about. Public opinion isn't discovered, it's manufactured, aimed, and published. 2 centuries ago, only kings, companies, and intelligence agencies could decide what got published. Today, that power sits in every pocket, and most of us now build our understanding of the world from a forwarded message, not a verified source. Which is why this generation carries a heavier duty than any before it. As a family, as a society, we are the last line of defense, teaching our children to pause before they believe, trace a claim to its source, and tell real news apart from a fairy tale dressed up as fact. Because history shows us what happens to a people who never learn to ask, who published this and why?